what made me think that obstacles would be a good topic is that when we were talking about discipline, it felt like, and actually in previous weeks when we've had this conversation, it felt like the issue of what is stopping you getting what you want is ever present for a creative. And we all like go through different, hey Andrew and Jake Bear Cub. And we all go through phases where we think we get into sort of more negative headspace of like, it's not possible, nobody wants to help me, I don't have a result, blah, 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 whatever it may be. But really, I suppose what I wanted to do is talk about all those reasons that we give as to why we're not getting what we want, so that we can sort of dismantle them. And also, hopefully, when they come up, remind ourselves of this conversation. Because I think if you really want something, and it doesn't matter whether it's actually, you know, a creative something or other, creative pursuit that you're on, hey Roddy, or if it's, you know, it could be I want to start a family, or it could be I want my own flat, or, you know, whatever it is, the first place to start is always, how much do you want it? Like, do you really want this thing? Hey Tom and Ryan, welcome Ryan. Yes. Yeah, so the first place is always like, how much do you want this thing? Because from there, that's the context into which you pour all the resources and all the thoughts and all the plans or whatever that you create to get the thing. Yeah, no, Ryan, I was thinking, am I pronouncing it right? Because I remember I went back and forwards with you about how to pronounce your name. So I'm like, But yeah, so that's really the place to start, is how much do I want this thing? Because if you're kind of like, you know, because a lot of people think that just wanting a particular thing out of, you know, being a creative, say for example, I want to be an actor, that's enough. But it actually isn't. You've really got to be driven. You've really got to want this, like almost like you've never wanted anything else. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to be that driven, because there's going to be so many times when you're pushed back and not going to get what you want, and going to get rejected, and going to get all the things that we talked about in all those previous conversations, and that you have to find, you know, the personal resources to be able to overcome that, and not let those things get in the way, and not let you not let them stop you getting what you want. Because, you know, I was thinking about like my own journey, and I used to have a sort of backroom job. I used to work in post-production, and 2003 or 2002 I decided I'm going to be an actor. And so I dropped everything basically and sort of retrained and started trying to find acting work. And obviously, at that time, my intention was not, it's going to take me 16 years before I, you know, get to be a series regular in something, or it's going to take me, you know, however many years before I get a TV role or whatever. You never start with that intent. And if I'd known, I don't know if I would have made it, but that's what it became. And because the passion was strong to begin with, that saw me through all those difficult times, and meant that like 16 years on, I'm still grafting at it and still loving it still at it because I love it. But it's got to be, I think the passion has got to be the starting point for anything. Like, if, you know, when you're pursuing something in the creative arts, a passion or a calling or just a feeling in your spirit that this is the place I'm supposed to be, like a supposed to be-ness about it, I suppose, for want of a better made up phrase. You know what I mean? You've got to feel like, no, there's nowhere else I'm meant to be, because I can't remember who it was, maybe Quincy Jones or something like that. And many acting coaches anyway say, look, I think Quincy Jones was referencing music, but if there's something else you can do that. Because this is such a hard journey to make it, or even to have any kind of success by any measure, including your own, that if you're not passionate about it, it's just going to be graft. It's going to be grueling for you. I'm just going to go back to the comments. For those of you who are here for the first time, I sort of finish my thought and then go back to the comments. So I'll always come back to you, but sometimes I just finish my thread before I go back. So I just want to say hi to Mike, Mike at 534 and Laura Smith, director. And Steve says, I think that's the truth, the sun around which all this orbits. How much do you want it? Absolutely. Because, you know, and I think in terms of how much do you want it, I think you just have to really have a really honest conversation with yourself, especially, and I'll tell you when it comes into stark contrast is when you are challenged, because that's when you really have to ask yourself, how much do you want this? Because it's easy, you know, to want it when it's all going well and you're a flow of opportunities coming your way, but when you're getting no, or, you know, people are saying your work's not good enough, then how much do you want it? And then that is when you will orientate yourself towards this shall be. I'm going to make a stand for myself in terms of my own creativity, and it's gonna feed me, and I'm, you know, going to be a success by whichever way you want to measure it. Because I think a lot of people think that just having a desire to do it, oh, I fancy doing that, I fancy being a painter, or I fancy being an actor, I fancy trying a bit of stand up, or whatever it is, you know, that's not going to sustain you, because eventually the challenges, the obstacles are going to be too much for you, because you never really wanted it that much in the first place. You were just giving it a go, just fancied it. And it's not like our passion for something is consistent. You might go off it. You might go, actually, I thought I loved it, but it sucks, or it's not for me, or I just didn't realise how much hard work it was. I kind of feel like that about directing. I don't think it sucks or anything like that. Far from it. I think it's an incredible discipline. But when I started to do it, I realised how hard it was. And I'm thinking, do I want to start again in a whole new career? Or should I just focus on the things that, you know, I'm already on rails with? And so I've decided to just park it for a little bit, get where I want to with other pursuits, and then maybe come back and look at it again when I'm not trying to keep other plates spinning. And that was a real relief for me to be able to go, okay, I'm setting that one aside just to focus on these, because the passion wasn't that strong. If it was, I would have dropped everything and, you know, gone for a longer term film school course. I did a 3-month thing or 2-month thing, whatever long it was. I think it was 3 months. But anyways, yeah, I would have properly committed to going to film school and done all those things and started, you know, making loads of little student films and, you know, constantly trying to make short films until I can get my first feature. But I realised that the path to start with being a director is the same as starting with being an actor, same as with being a writer and a comedian and all those other things that I've started. It's hard and it's all consuming, and I wasn't prepared to be all consumed by it, so I set it aside. Carly, hey Carly, welcome. Brookstar85 says, I completely agree, but the hardest thing for some people is when they say, how much do I give before it's too much? That's a huge block for some people. How much do I give before it's too much? Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting point, actually. How much do you give before it is too much? Well, there's no measure of what's too much, and it's really down to what, you know, if you take stock of your life, you know, having pursued some sort of creative discipline, and you realise that it's starting to take a toll in a negative way on your life, then maybe that is too much. If you're starting to lose contact with friends, if your family is suffering because of your commitment, and you feel like that is not a sacrifice you're willing to make, because that's what it comes down to. It's not just about the fact that something's compromised, it's the fact that you have decided that compromise is a compromise too far. I mean, that's when you have to decide it's too much. But yeah, I mean, you can't anticipate that because basically trying to anticipate that you'll give and then it'll become too much is basically living in the state of resignation. You're basically saying, well, it's not going to work out, and I'll end up giving so much that I'll have burnt myself out, or I've burnt bridges, or ruined my relationship, you know, whatever it may be. So you're sort of, those people who think like that are already coming at it from a state of, well, it's not going to work out, so why bother? It's going to become, eventually it's going to become too much and it's going to be a nightmare, so why bother? So it's like, they're basically taking themselves out of the gene pool. And maybe they needed to. Maybe in their spirit they knew that the journey of trying to get there, wherever there is, was going to be too much for them. Martha, hey. Adam, hey. Ian says, my biggest fear is having finished the script is being asked to do it again. May, I completely relate to that. There is something quite remarkable about finishing something and then you feel like, good, I have done it. World, look, I did what you asked of me. I finished the thing I was doing. And then world goes, we'd like another one, please. Not world, but you know in your spirit that like stopping at that one, you can't. I mean, I keep referencing painting because Carly's here and I'm I watch her working on her Instagram as well. You guys should follow Carly. But you don't stop at one painting, you don't stop at one poem, you don't stop at one photograph. You know, you have to start again. And one of the most daunting things is looking at a blank canvas, an empty SD card, a notebook with nothing in it, a blank screen, whatever it may be, is incredibly daunting. And so much so that sometimes people don't even start. That's how scary that is. So well done, all of us, you know, for even taking that on, of taking on that blank canvas and just going, there's going to be something here. I'm committing my time and energy to making sure there's something here. Joaquim says, have we all within us to be good in what we aspire to be? We need Aldo. I don't know what Aldo is, but I think, I mean, I spoke about this right at the beginning, but I think there is, of all these talks, but I think there is a thing of like maybe a natural aptitude for something where you might have sort of very basic natural skills in a particular area. But at the end of the day, and many sort of research is starting to lean towards this, is that you can just get good at something by practicing. And that can be one of the obstacles to getting, oh sorry, excuse me, I'll just silence that bad boy. That can be one of the obstacles to stopping you getting what you want, is the idea, the daunting prospect of hours of practice. And it's not just any old practice, because again, I referenced this in a different conversation, was this, you know, this Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. Well, there was another researcher that looked into this whole 10,000 hours, and he was like, it's not just any old 10,000 hours. They have to be, you know, applied practice that's going to push you and push you and push you. So usually it's with someone who's like training you, or a teacher or facilitator or something. And it means being in a state of not knowing a hell of a lot. It means being in a state of failure and fucking up a lot, which isn't, you know, it's not a pleasant place to be. But luckily the context of being in education, usually, you know, people are okay with it. But it's not great, is it? Like always feeling like you don't know what you're doing, or you're not quite getting it right. But then you get the joy of achieving and starting to progress, and being able to look back on your journey. But yeah, I feel like just practice can make a huge difference. For, you know, if someone with natural aptitude and someone who continually, but if someone with natural aptitude who never practices and someone with average aptitude who practices were put head to head, within a certain amount of time, the one who practices would overtake the one with natural aptitude, because this person isn't committing themselves to developing. They're just referencing off a sort of arrogance based off of their inherent skills. But the practice is the humble, sort of plodding, discipline-based path of the person that really wants to get good at what they're doing, who's willing to do drills even to learn the skills needed to be able to do what they're doing, to do what they want to do. Joaquin says, also be truthful to yourself if you also have talent. Yeah, I mean, sure, like if you are good at something, celebrate that and give it space and room if that's your desire. But just because you're good at something, you shouldn't feel like you have to pursue it, because I feel like that's something that gets in the way of people sometimes as well, is people are like, oh well, I'm good at it and it's an easy path, but I don't really enjoy it. What I really want to do is blur, but that path is difficult. And it's just like, well, don't feel like just because society tells you or society has this agreement that if you're this thing, then that's what you should be doing. Just do what is your passion, because that's what's going to light you up, and that's what's going to, you know, you don't want to look back on your life and go, oh, I gave away all those years to pursuing something because everyone expected me to, because I was good at it. You don't owe the world good, you owe the world passion. That's what will set other people on fire, is your passion, not just you being good, but it being a heartless experience for you. Varushka, welcome. Martha, hello. Steve, oh, okay, they're in conversation about something. Okay, so so what I wanted to do first off is just to acknowledge everybody that's on here and just say like how awesome you guys all are for being in whatever phase you are in terms of your own creativity. You know, some of you are professionals and have got careers underway, and some of you are sort of exploring what they want to do. But it's all awesome. But I want to talk about the obstacles that come up, because sometimes people comment and go, yeah, but what about her? So I want to see if we can shine some light on those obstacles, so that when they come up again, you can have a different appreciation of them or a different relationship with them, so that maybe they don't block you and don't get in your way. Because I think because there's so many things. this life shouldn't, as in the creative life, it doesn't make any sense on paper at all. Which is why, so many parents, I guess, get so panicked when, their kids come and tell them that they're going to be, an actor, or I want to be a singer, or I want to be this, I want to be that. It's like, are you sure you don't want to be a nurse or a teacher? Because that path is very clearly laid out. This one isn't, and it doesn't make sense, but we do it because of the passion. The Lady Ilan B, welcome. So let's go through them, and if there's obstacles that you think of, and also this takes a little bit of honesty, because we can't just, what we don't want to do is get into the realm of acting like, forgetting the moments that we've been blocked. Do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes people want to comment, well, what I do is, and it's like, well, that's not going to get us anywhere. What we've got to do is be frank with ourselves and go, all right, when you get blocked, what happens? What gets in your way? Like this week, I've just started seeing a coach again, and I had a conversation with this coach about writing this, this book that I've been sort of struggling with for over a year now. And I said to him, in a previous conversation, we had discussed me just bashing it down, and people have said that to me other times, and it just hasn't made sense to me, because I'm like, I'm trying to get it right, so that when I send it to my editor, even if I send her 4 chapters or 5 chapters or 10 or whatever, that she won't have any notes, because I'll have written it so bloody well. But what's happening is, I'm writing a bit, I'm sending it to her, she's giving me notes, I'm going back and changing them and trying to perfect that, so that when I send it back, she won't have any more notes. And so I'm never getting beyond like 10 or 12 chapters. And so the end point of writing this book is getting further and further and further away. So I was talking to this coach about it, and he's like, basically said, why don't you just like bash it down? And and like I say, that's been said to me before, but when he said it, something just suddenly clicked, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be notes, even if I wrote it so perfectly, wrote the whole thing, and the more perfect it is, the harder it is to unpick when I do get those notes. So better to just bash it down and have it be in a state where I'm not passionately wedded to it, as it were, in that current form, so that when the notes come, I can go, yeah, cool, that bit was going to go anyways, that was a bit of a placeholder, blah blah. And I realized that the way that I was working before was almost a form of procrastination, because what I was doing is I was putting off the end, which is essentially what procrastination is. It's always just putting off getting to the finish line, either by deciding to do your tax returns instead of writing, or going for a walk and saying, I need to think for a minute before you put brush to canvas, or whatever it is. So I had that sort of moment of clarity about this procrastination that I've been doing, which is ironic, because I was working, but it was still a form of procrastination. So that's sometimes where I get caught, is in to give you an example of the sort of obstacles in my way of getting to where I want to get to, is fancy procrastination. So I'm just going to say hello to some of the people that just joined. Ken, Dog, Amelia, of course, Amelia, I recognise your name, and Susie, hello. Stu said, what have I just done? Okay, Stu says, you had the same bash it out comment made, but you were in different places each time. Yes, exactly. And I think because I'd seen the cost of this procrastination, that's why the second time, or third or fourth, how many times, anyways, when the coach said it this most recent time, when he said it that time, that's why it landed, is because I'm like, I know the cost of not even trying this method is I'm just going to constantly be tinkering under the bonnet of these 12 chapters that will never ever get finished. So yes, you're right, I was in a different place, was listening from a different place of like, I know what the cost is now if I don't do this, if I don't pull my finger out. So procrastination is one of the things that can get in the way of is one of the things that can get in the way of us getting to where we want to get to. What's the solution to that? I mean, I don't know if I should try and find solutions, but just really all of these things are just about seeing them in process and then taking action around that. Rather than me getting really sort of practical about, oh, well, you should do this, this and this, but just see that's observe yourself, that's what's going on, and get into a mode where you can just be in action, you can create movement, because that's one of the things that came out of this conversation with the coach, is that if you bash it down, then there's movement, whereas how I was working before, there was no movement because I was just stuck in this place called chapter 1 to 12 constantly stuck there. But now I'm already, after a week of working like that, it's like I'm already at chapter, I think I might be at chapter 8, but this is from starting at the beginning. Soon I'm going to be pushing through to sort of 15, 20 or whatever, maybe next week or the week after that, because I'm literally just bashing it down, and then go back and review the situation afterwards. But then I'll have a whole book, which is something that in the whole year I've been doing this, even though I could have had a whole book, I haven't. But now that I'm trying this new technique, there's movement, there's momentum, and there's a possibility of book at the end of this. Ian says, it's another name for writer's block then. I don't believe in writer's block or creative block in any way. I think what happens with writer's block or any kind of creative block is that there is a disconnect between the quality of what you think you can produce and what you want to produce. And so you stop because you don't want to see shit on the page. Who wants to see that? So I don't think there's actually any such thing as writer's block. I think that what happens is people just would rather not create garbage, so they just don't create anything. Because if someone said to put a gun to a writer's head or a painter's head or a photographer, whatever it is, and said, you will write 10 pages of prose, do you think the writer would go, but I'm blocked? No, they would write something. And so writer's block is to my mind not a real thing. The block is telling yourself that you can't write rather than that you can't write, if that makes sense. Because the way to clear writer's block is to write. Steve says, is there a solution to procrastination, or is it an experience you grow through? Well, I think that you grow through. That's what you meant. Okay. Well, yeah, because I think, because you quoted the cost of procrastination, and maybe that chimed with you. Yeah, I mean, if you get present to the cost of constantly putting stuff off and seeing what you are not achieving because you are constantly pushing off the end point, then yeah, you will find your own solution to it. You'll find that you recognize when it's happening. You'll find that you've got techniques for getting yourself out of it, for creating the movement that you need to be able to move on. But ultimately, the key is to get moving, get into action. Do you know what I mean? Like, get something done. Because procrastination is about not getting something done. So the only solution is to get something done. The only other solution is to abandon your project, and that is a legitimate solution to procrastination. Just because you said you were going to do something doesn't mean you have to, but it depends how important it is to you, going back to the passion. So I think that's the solution to procrastination, is to get in action or get out of the situation. I would propose getting in action would be the better place to start, because at least see what's possible when you create some movement in your project rather than just abandoning it. Verishka says that does make sense. Amelia says she uses music and TV. Yeah, I think everyone knows what their the thing that catches your attention is, that takes you away, what you use to do it. Social media obviously is an obvious one, a big one. And some people, when they write, they deactivate Facebook, Twitter, all those sorts of things, so that they can't look at that stuff. So sometimes when I'm writing, I will put my phone away, turn it over, even if I silence it as well, so even if the alerts come in, I don't hear them, and I make a space where I've got a half-hour break where I can go through Instagram and whatever, so that, because otherwise what's happening is I'm writing. I think I've been writing for an hour and a half, when actually I've been writing for half an hour and spending an hour scrolling through Instagram, looking at you guys' lovely posts. So to stop that happening, I turn the phone off and say, and I also know that you've only got a finite amount of time where you can concentrate. You know, so what I do is I don't know exactly what that is, but I feel like an hour and a half is a good chunk of time for me. 2 hours at a push. So I only have sessions of 2 hours or 1.5 hours to write, and then I schedule breaks so that I know that, okay, you can do this. You've written for an hour and a half before, easy. And then I just, and I know that at 2:30 or whatever it is, I get to stop. And then I start again at 3. And that works, because that keeps me focused. If you just try and do, I'm just gonna write poetry for the whole day, you will end up you will not even notice the point where you stopped writing and flipped over to messing about with cleaning out your cutlery drawer. You won't even notice that happened. 1 minute you would have been writing, and the next minute you'll be cleaning out your cutlery drawer. So I think fixed amounts of time I mean, if you happen to get carried away and you're just so in the zone or whatever, obviously don't curtail the flow. But if you find it difficult to have concentrated work, then limiting that time and scheduling breaks and keeping going between the two might be a way round getting distracted. Steve says, I keep thinking of how much this also applies to our personal relationship as a topic for another day. Interesting. Okay. So what else? So now let me talk about some of the things that people say are in the way of them not getting what they want. So opportunity is one of them. People say, oh, I haven't got I can't get access to opportunities. And I think that sometimes we have this idea that there are gatekeepers, and only they can give you access to the industry that you're trying to get into. Now I think we especially nowadays, with how democratized media is in terms of, well, basically I'm talking about social media, we can create more opportunities for ourselves than we could have 20 years ago. So for example, I follow a couple of artists, and one of them does these paintings that I'm just like, one day I am going to have one of those on my wall. Now I would never have necessarily heard of that artist, I wouldn't have known about their work, but because of Instagram, and I see, I'm following one account that suggests another account, and I look at that other account and I'm like, I love those paintings. And so without any agent or any marketing or any publisher having to get involved, I've now got access to as a punter, I've got access to somebody else's work. So I think we need to stop thinking of there being only these sort of established gatekeepers are the ones that can give us our in, and start to believe that we can create our own gate and be the keeper of that gate for ourselves. And yes, access to those bigger gatekeepers will at some point in the career be the goal, but sometimes we disempower ourselves as artists by saying that it's only those guys, and if they won't let me in, then I'm not in and not worthy, and I'll never make it. Carly says, excellent, yes, very true. Carly says, social media is great for opening doors. Yeah, I really believe that. I mean, another example, hey Tony and Mike, who's just joined. Another example is a comedian calls himself Mo the Comedian, and he was a stand-up, and then he started making these little sort of little Instagram videos of like some characters, and it was so crudely done. He would shoot them in, at home, just switching wigs. If he was playing the police, there'd just be a little police sticker on a puffer jacket or something. But he was really funny. The point is that the writing was good. That's why they worked. But he has literally got thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram now, to the point where now he's able to tour. He's able to tour and do bigger rooms than established comedians. Well, established comedians who are circuit comedians, not necessarily TV comedians. But he's now becoming a TV comedian because he's gotten so much traction with the Instagram, which has led to his tour, which is now leading to TV opportunities. And he's got, I think, a pilot on Channel 4 coming out soon. So he has completely he's made the social media work in his favour. Very much so. Justin Bieber, Steve says, yeah, he's a brilliant example. He was the first pop star to really be created off of the back of YouTube. But obviously, he was talented. He's a fantastic singer. He's a musician as well. So, and he was sort of easy on the eye to young teenage girls. So it was that perfect combination. Off he goes. Justin Bieber, Steve says, is a classic example. Career started after his mum posted a video of him playing piano at school. Apologies for mentioning Bieber. Well, look, I mean, an artist is an artist, and he is an artist. Personal taste aside, So we need to just basically empower ourselves in terms of how we see opportunity. There's always a way, if you're willing to think outside the box, to be creative with how you're pursuing your goal. Because actually one of the obstacles, I would say, actually, as well, is like walking the beaten path. Sometimes we think that because that's how it was done, that's how it should be done. And sometimes people who aren't successful, or maybe who aren't creative about how to get themselves successful, tell you about the beaten path, because that's all they're doing. And I've had this firsthand, like you may remember I mentioned this before about when I've gotten to LA and people are telling me how to navigate LA, but they're just telling me what other people have told them or what they've seen other people do. They're not referencing off any kind of creativity. They're just regurgitating what's already been told to them. And often when I go to like Q&As, I go to a lot of Q&As with directors and writers, because I find those really interesting, because they're about how the projects came to fruition and the thinking behind what I've just, if you see go to a screening, there'll be a Q&A afterwards. And I want to hear about their thoughts and inspirations in relation to the project. And then someone will ask during the Q&A, how did you get started? How did you become a director? How did you become a writer? I've never heard the same story twice. There's always, some people come through programs, some people come through workshops, some people work their way up as a runner, some people, there's like, Ava DuVernay is a director. She just directed A Wrinkle in Time. Her path into directing came through being a publicist. She didn't train as a director. She came into it as a publicist. So there's no fixed path. And if you think outside of the box and allow yourself to imagine all roads, there's many roads that could lead to where you want to get to, suddenly the gatekeepers the gatekeepers aren't watching every gate, because you're thinking about coming from different angles. If you're only trying to get to the front gate, of course the gatekeepers are going to get you. But if you start getting creative and thinking, okay, while everyone else is knocking on the front door, I'm going to go around the back. To extend the metaphor. I'm picturing Castle Black for some reason when I say all this. But yeah, so we need to remember to be inventive about how you create opportunity. Yeah, and use social media to your advantage if you want to be on the social media platform. Steve says the danger of social media, though, is we measure the worth of our creativity by the number of clicks, views, and likes. Easy to spiral down when those are lacking. Yes, it is. But Steve, what are you going to do? Are you going to allow likes and clicks to define your value? That's on you. That's not on social media. When I do these talks, I'm aware of how many people are on. And I literally, just before I came on here, I saw somebody else was live and they had like 500 people on their thing. And I said to myself, well, that wasn't a good idea to look at that before you do yours. But then whenever I think about the number of people, just in terms of quantity that turn up here, I always think about the quality of the conversation that we have. And for those of you who were ever on Periscope, whenever I used to Periscope, it was a shit show. There was so much madness on it. And yes, there would be, 100 people on the conversation, but everyone was just crazy. The conversation was crazy because of the people just saying all kinds of random things. So I measure the benefit of this in terms of the quality of the conversation we're having, not in terms of the number of people that show up. And I think that, because, sometimes people can buy clicks and likes, but the engagement that you get can go down when you do that. So the number of clicks and likes, or the number of followers or whatever may have gone up, but the quality of the interaction goes down. So I don't necessarily think that, but I don't think that's social media's fault. I think that's on the person who is concerning themselves with how many likes and views. If you're doing something great, likes and views will come. Tony Williams says, if you go into a market and everyone is doing the same thing, do the opposite and you'll make a difference. The majority is always most wrong. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I mean, I think just maybe what I would say, that's one way of seeing it, and I'm not going to sort of disagree necessarily, but what I would say is more live from your truth. You know, if it's truthful for you to, if you just feel called to make comedy videos, say for example in the Mo the Comedian example, if you feel called to do that, then just crack on and do it. Because there are some comedians who are like, they're quite old school in the sense that they don't like using social media for their comedy. It's like, why am I giving it away for free? You know, because someone should pay to come and see my show. And there are genuinely people that think like that. Whereas if you love social media, if you love making little videos, little Vines, or, you know, I know Vine's not around anymore, but if you love all that stuff, then that's your truth, then do that. Rather than say, oh, do the opposite of the majority, which I don't necessarily think the majority is always wrong. That's, yeah, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. But if you come from your truth, then you'll always be satisfied with what you did, because you know that it just came from your passion and your joy. Ian says, I understand what you mean. I'm a chef. You're a chef. Very good. Joaquim says, you're the best, Andy. I really value these talks. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Gone all bashful. So that's opportunity. Another one is resources. So some people say they haven't got the resources to do what they want to do. I think you've got to get super inventive when it comes to this, because, and also remember that, yeah, get creative, really. I mean, I said that about opportunities, but it's the same applies to resources. You know, you have people making feature films, not short films, but feature films with iPhones, and admittedly they're buying, you know, extra lenses and stuff, but they're still doing it on a micro budget. So you might be surprised, say if you're a filmmaker, you might be surprised at what you can achieve with your micro budget if you have a network of people that you can enroll them in your passion, i.e. the project that you're trying to create, and get them to give resources for free. Sometimes you can give things in kind, like for example, sometimes you can offer someone the position of producer for their services. So if you wanted someone to edit something for you, you could say, okay, I'm going to credit you as a producer as well as editor on this project if you'll edit it for me. Someone who's looking for a leg up and wants to do their first feature film will be up for that. You just have to find them, and that's where the passion comes in. The passion you have for your project will drive you to find that person that is looking for that opportunity, so that you can. I mean, God, it's how much you want something is the linchpin. I mean, Steve, I think you just basically said it earlier. It's the linchpin for how much you're gonna, how well, or how you're going to make this thing happen. If you're going to make this thing happen, it's all dependent on how much you want it. Because if you can't be asked with doing all that sort of stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just get straight with yourself, I can't be bothered. You don't want it enough. That's all. That's fine. Find another passion, something else that you can get behind. And it might not even it might not have anything to do with being a creative. It might have more to do with, I don't know, being a family man, or, you know, being a mum, or doing something for your community or something like that. Doesn't have to be a creative thing. And you haven't done anything wrong by letting go of this, because you might be, anyway, I'll come back to this. Okay, so Ramkamama, oh, it's not showing me the rest of the name, and Nick James, welcome. Martha says, she really is oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, so self-belief, that's another one that gets in the way, as in you don't believe in yourself. Stop that. Basically, that's all I can say. Your lack of self-belief, people think of it in terms of something missing. I just don't have the self-belief, you know, that type of thinking. I genuinely believe that that experience called lack of self-belief, I actually think that is the presence of something else. rather than a lack of self-belief. I think it's the presence of, for want of a better way of expressing it, I think that's the presence of the experience called I lack self-belief. Does that make sense? I believe that inherently we all have self-belief, but sometimes something comes in and clouds our access to our self-belief. So I don't think we genuinely lack self-belief. I think what happens is there's a presence of doubt. Doubt is what comes in. We allow doubt to come in. And so when we have this experience called I don't have self-belief, we have to just acknowledge that, oh, doubt is here. Doubt isn't always here. There was a time when I believed in this. So let me somehow try and reconnect with the time that I did believe in myself. Yeah, self-doubt. Yeah. You can call it self-doubt, but what I'm saying is there's a presence of something else. It is the self-belief is always there in the background, but the doubt clouds. The self-belief is the sun. The self-doubt is the clouds. So what we have to do is get rid of the clouds and allow the sun to shine, because that is our natural state, is the sun shining. That's what I believe anyways, is that because our ego, its commitment to us, unfortunately, is to keep us safe. And one of the ways it keeps us safe is to not let us try anything new. And so a great way to stop you trying something new is when you suddenly have a great idea and the sun comes out and you've got this self-belief that, yeah, I'm going to be a writer. And then so the ego goes, I know how to stop her being a writer. You're not very good, and you haven't got any experience, and you haven't got anything published yet. And so this cloud of doubt comes in, and you're like, it puts out your light, and you're like, actually, you're right, it's a cloudy day. I'm not a good writer. I haven't got experience. So what we have to do when that cloud comes in, we just have to sort of no, I remember there's been sunny days. I remember the day that I decided I was going to be a writer. It was a sunny day, and get back to that state rather than allow this thing to come in and take us to a place where nothing new can come in. Because genuinely, the ego is not, it is a ruthless monster that, let me not use the word monster. It is ruthless in its pursuit of keeping us safe and keeping everything the same. And so every time you want to, in fact, Carly shared on Facebook recently this brilliant video about this woman talking about how motivation is bullshit, because she was saying that we're only ever motivated to do the things we can, or the things that we're good at, i.e. keep things the same. As soon as we get into the realm of trying something new, we self-doubt, resignation, hesitation, whatever comes in. And so we have to remember those sunny days if we want this thing to work out, and not succumb to the doubt. Yes, always be reviewing your plans, always be making sure that you're heading in the direction that you want to, or what you're doing is going to get you to where you want to. But that is a very different mindset to being in a state of self-doubt. So self-belief is your natural state. Live in that, and that way you will be able to realize your goal. Steve says, I love the way you look at things differently. Lack of self-belief is the presence of doubt. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, I'm glad that chimed. Joaquim says, doubt is someone else's bad energy. Well, it might not be. It might be your own. It might be generated out of your own mind, but it is something that you have the power to override if you want to. It is a cloud that you're able to clear out if you want to. Tony Williams says, ego, edge God out. Edge God out. Wow, I've never heard that before. I like it. Yeah, because I'm, as a non-Christian, I'm going to interpret that in my own way. And what I hear is that I feel like when you're in a really very ego-based experience, like say you're really angry about something and you're in a real funk and you can't get yourself out of it, when you're in that, I feel like that is the opposite of when you're in a flow state, which is more in connection with God or the universe, or however you would want to describe it. So I get that. That's how I would interpret it. So that makes sense. Thanks for that, Tony. Steve says, I had a conversation with a German girl once who was saying her English was terrible, but when she had a few drinks, she spoke better English. I told her you've always had the capacity to speak well. But that is a perfect example. is that because her ego is telling her you don't speak English very well, but when you have a couple of drinks and you get more in a flow state, inhibitions are down, so the inhibitions that were present are taken away, the cloud is gone. Now she can speak fluent English. And so the drink is not adding anything to your capacity to speak well. Exactly, it's just like allowing her to clear the fog of the inhibitions. Very good. All right, so a few more that I wanted to throw out there. Time is one of the things that people say gets in the way of them achieving their goal or their realizing their passion. I don't have enough time, or it's too late. I think there's a t-shirt or a meme or something along the lines of, you've got the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce. And even though, yes, that's probably not a good example anymore because she's probably got a team, the principle is still the same. You got the same number of hours as everybody else. So what are you going to do with them? Sometimes when people say they don't have time for something, it means that they're not willing to make time. I try and use the right language when I'm saying I don't have time for something. I try to language it as I'm not able to make time, or I don't want to make time, or however I say it. But I haven't got time isn't true. If I watch a little bit less Netflix, maybe I could do the thing that, I'm thinking about making time for. I'm not saying sacrifice so that you can do the thing, but I'm just saying be straight with yourself. When you say you don't have time, there may be something that you have to sacrifice to be able to make space for the thing. So it may be that you have to sacrifice an hour of sleep so that you can get up an hour and write. And there's so many writers I've read their accounts of like starting out when they've got a job. In fact, Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, I think she was one of those writers who was having to, get up at the crack of dawn, do an hour of writing before work, and then maybe to pick it up again when she got home. If you are passionate, if your passion is strong, you will do that. If you are not that passionate, it's just a whim, oh, fancy being a writer, then of course you're not going to sacrifice an hour of sleep. You're going to say, I don't have time. I don't have time. So be straight with yourself about what's important to you. And if 9 hours of sleep or whatever is more important than your book, then so be it. That's just the way things are right now. It may be that this book is so desperately trying to come out of you, like, the alien or whatever, that actually in the end you just go, I'm going to make that sacrifice. The time is now. I feel it now. It wants to be birthed out of me and I can't deny it anymore. I will go down to 7 hours. It's only at 7 hours sleep. It's only for 6 months, and then after that I'll have all the sleep I want, but the book will be finished. This book will be so. I'm going to make a stand for this book to exist, because last week I was talking about the discipline thing of making a stand. That's really what we're saying with all of this, is that when you make a stand for something, the obstacles become circumstances that you weave in and out of, whereas when you haven't made a stand for something, when it's just a whim, the obstacles just they're a brick wall that you just butt up against and just turn around and go back. And everyone's over here at the finish line where you started and go, what happened? You went there and then you came straight back. It's like, oh yeah, there was like no time and there was no self-belief down there and some other things, so I came back. Whereas the person who's intentional gets to that brick wall and they throw their rope over and they climb. There's a saying, I don't know if it's an Irish saying or if it's something that this one particular person says, but they were saying something about how throw your hat over the wall. And it was to do with when they were a kid in Ireland, and saying, like, if you and your friends were on some sort of like, you're on some little, what do they call it, like a romp or whatever, you're going somewhere with all your mates. When you sort of, in the 70s and 60s or whatever, people used to just send their kids out and they come back at like 6 hours later. Anyway, so if you're doing one of those with your mates and you wanted to go further, but someone was scared, throw their hat over the wall, because then they can't turn back, because they've got to get their hat. So you've got to get over the wall. You've got to see what's over there. And that's what we have to do as creators. If you want your thing to be so, you've got to make a stand for yourself. You've got to throw your hat over the wall. Readiness. Oh God, I really want to talk about these last few, because like, I think that these are all the things that like really get in the way and we succumb to them so easily. Readiness like is one of them, where you feel like, oh, I'm not ready. When I have this and this, I'll be ready. When I know this, and this, I'll be ready. And it's not true. You have to start, and you will become ready by the act of starting. You know, if you wait until you're ready, you will never start. You imagine yourself on a diving board about to do a 10 meter, do on the 10 meter diving board. Who's ever ready for that the first time they do it? You know, there's no other board you can do to be prepared for 10 other than the 10 or the 20. But who's going to be ready for that? If you haven't done the 10, you're definitely not going to be ready for the 20. You just have to jump afraid. That's what Viola Davis says, is jump afraid. Because otherwise, you wait and you wait and you wait. And like I said, the ego's job is to keep you safe. So the ego is always going to come up with reasons. The readiness is is just the ego just going, wait. Don't change anything. Just keep things as you know, because you're not ready. And it keeps telling you this story so that you go, yeah, you're right. But when I'm ready, I'm doing it. And the ego's like, yeah, no, totally. When you're ready, I'm diving with you. And guess what? You're never ready, because there's always some reason that you come up with. Oh, I'm not educated enough. I'm not trained enough. I don't have the opportunities yet. I don't have the resources. And so you never get round to being ready. So jump afraid. You have to trust. You got to jump afraid. And that's not just like a trite saying or whatever. It is literally what you've got to do. Even when I started doing this conversation, I didn't feel ready. I felt like I wanted to do it, but I didn't feel ready. But I just had to jump afraid, because I was worried about various things, about how they would go, whether people would turn up, whether I could actually speak in a way that I wanted to, whether people would come on these and expect me to be telling jokes, and it's like, no, this isn't this, blah, blah, blah. All kinds of concerns. So I had to jump afraid. And now here we are 18 weeks on. And if I go back to those original ones, probably I'll laugh and go, look, she looks afraid. But it's either that or just go back and tell the people where you came from why you turned back. Oh, there was not being ready up there, and some lack of self-belief or a presence of self-doubt. So I came back. And they're like, oh, fair enough, yeah. No, jump afraid. Okay, Martha says true. Oh, Carly says you like the hat analogy. Yeah, I really dug that. I love the hat analogy. Martha says true. Joaquin says today is really about creating opportunity. It's about not getting stopped by obstacles. It's not about creating opportunity. It's about not getting stopped. Because I'm not here to tell you what to do or not to do. But it's just about not having the things that normally stop people stop you. That's what today's about. Tony says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I love it. That's great. Andrew says loving this talk, Andy. Thank you. Tony says the time would never be right. The right time is now. Is always now. That's it. I'm out. Mic drop from Tony. What else? Fear. Well, I wrote down fear, but really that's woven into every single bit that of what I've said today. Is fear is just another little tactic of the ego. And listen, let's not demonize the ego. I don't want us to think of the ego in that way. It's just doing its job. But fear is one of its ways of like, oh, what if nobody likes it? What if it doesn't go well? What if you look stupid? Jump afraid. Responsibilities. I'm just like powering through these last few. Responsibilities. What if I'm married, I've got kids, I've got all these other things going on. I love this phrase, enroll them in your passion, i.e. get them involved in supporting you, not in a you owe me this kind of way, but in a how can we as a team make this, because especially if you're in a relationship, you are a team, and if you aren't functioning like a team, then you're not a well-oiled machine. You should be a team where each part of your team, whatever it is able to experience passion and flow at some point. The kids, the parents, the dog, you know, because I don't say the dog glibly, because like if the dog doesn't get to run around and experience play or something, then your family unit isn't functioning properly. Everybody should experience that a little bit. And if yours means, okay, what we need to do is make sure that the kids are here so that I can go and do my class and you can have the da-da-da, and then I'll take the kids at the, you know, whatever you need to do to make that work. Enroll people. If you have to enroll your friends, if you have to enroll your neighbours, because when you've got passion, you don't mind sticking your neck out and involving other people and making sure that they help you get where you want to get to. And the way you'll pay them back is by being of service, which is what we talked about before, and helping them get their passion too. You know, being in a, you know, for example, with filmmaking community, you know, I help you make your film, you help me make mine. Yeah. That, I mean, so there's a few other little things, like some beliefs that get in our way. I'm getting the countdown, so let me just finish this off. Resignation, I think, is a big one. It's not going to work out anyways, so why would I bother? So catch yourself in the moment of being in resignation. And instead of letting the resignation take you, get present to why the hell you're doing it. Why are you putting yourself in the front line of all this rejection and difficulties and obstacles? What is it you want? Get in touch with that, and that will override any resignation, any fears, any self-doubt that creeps in, anything that gets in your way. Go out there and put this in action, is what I say. Just try it on for size. Try it on for size. Catching yourself in the moment of allowing something disempowering or negative to get in your way, but celebrate yourself when you override it and just go, you know what, not today. You know, like, not today. Today I'm going to remember what my sunshine is, what my self-belief is, what I believed at one point about what I could do and why I want this. And that's what's going to sustain me. It was a good idea, and it is a good idea. And that's the offering that I want to put into the universe, and there is a listening for it. Someone somewhere will resonate with what I'm offering. I just have to live in my truth, and they will connect with it. The more truthful I am about the creativity that I'm putting into the world, the more it will resonate and chime with somebody else. That's it. That's the truth, Ruth. Guys, I got 16 seconds. I'm going to do a little after party just to say thanks to everyone for being here. But thank you for the TED Talk comments. That is very kind of you guys. But I'm going to check out and I'll come back on just to say thanks and bye. All right. I'm really surprised how this is the notes that I've got. But I'm surprised how much came out of that. It was just like, you know, once the thoughts started to flow, yeah, there was a lot that sort of came up, and thank you guys for the comments and questions and all the rest of it, because you really make me have to really explore, what do I really believe? I mean, and all I can share with you is what I believe today. Who knows what I will feel like tomorrow, next week, or whatever. But yeah, thank you for sort of just really sort of inquiring and making me really think about this. Oh, guys, yeah, joking. I'm really sorry that ended abruptly, but literally I was getting a countdown. They do a 2-minute countdown from the end, so I just wanted to just tell you I was gonna end it so that I could just complete and just tie a bow over on this one, on a separate one, without the pressure of like time counting down. Thank you, Steve. Steve says it flowed nicely. Kylie says she's not being nice. I should do a TED Talk. Thank you so much. I would love to. I'm going to think about. I will put some thought into if I were to do one, what I would talk about. But yes, I really would, because I really feel like the more of these I do, the more I feel more clarity about what I'm wanting to achieve, is like, you know, some inspiration and some bigger thinking for creatives, because of the, you know, the nature of the agreement that society has about who we are and what we do and how hard it is, and, you know, all the rest of it, all the stories that creatives tell themselves. And I really want to put out some ideas that are just like, no, you can, yes you can, and there's no reason why not. So thank you guys for that encouragement. I really do appreciate it, because yeah, I'd I will invite you if I do one. So let me see, make sure I've got all your comments. Thank you, Martha, and thank you for coming into work early to be here. Carly, thank you. No, I will take it in. It's very, 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 very appreciated and very kind of you guys. Okay, so that was it. I just wanted to say to acknowledge you guys for being here and sticking with it, and just being a great listening for the whole thing, and just keeping it going. Where this is number 18. Who knows how many we're destined to do, but I'm really enjoying doing them, and I really appreciate you guys being here to converse about specifically about this. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Andrew. I will have a great week. You have a great week too. And I really would encourage, I mean, I sort of rushed saying it at the end, but I really would encourage us all really to look at those times that the idea of an obstacle or something occurs as an obstacle in our creativity, and catch ourselves and applaud ourselves when we overcome it and find another way of experiencing the thing that's happening. You know, like for example, the procrastination example that I gave earlier. There might be examples in your own creative life this week that you're just like, there you are again. Presence of self-doubt vanquished. And then you can get on with being an awesome creative. Okay, that was it. I will see you guys all next Sunday. Well, hopefully if you can make it, and I'll have a think about what next Sunday's topic will be, and I will let you know on the gram. Thank you, Joaquin. Close to having 12 disciples yet. Okay, all right, guys. Have a brilliant week, and I will see you all very soon.